Okay, hello everybody. Peter and I wanted to welcome you to our presentation today, to our live stream today. Both of us are part of the SCORE organization here in Minnesota, and welcome you. Let's get started. First of all, a little bit about SCORE. We're a nationwide organization that's associated with the U.S. Small Business Administration. We do free confidential business mentoring, and then we provide education services, local workshops, resources, etc. There are 300 chapters in SCORE and 11,000 volunteers. And here's what makes us proud is that we've assisted over 10 million businesses, which is something we're very, very proud of. Where we can help you is at different junctures in the business, whether it's pre-startup. We do a lot of work with entrepreneurs that are thinking about starting a business. The startup phase, getting into it, what you do legally, what you do in terms of your business name, branding, registration, accounting, etc. And then when you've been in business, how do you find growth opportunities? And then really, finally, if you want to get out of the business, how do you, we work with you on an exit strategy. So there are many phases in a life cycle of a business, as you know, and we're proud to be able to help in every facet. We're proud also to have a great set of sponsors and community partners. A couple have been added recently for us here, and we're very proud to be able to leverage them. Actually, during the last year, during COVID, we were able to lean on a few of these organizations to walk our clients through what needed to be done from a financing and aid perspective. So we're very fortunate to have that. If you've worked with SCORE before, you know that we are very focused on ensuring that businesses think about their business plan. And an easy way to do that, a quick and dirty way to do it, is using the business model canvas, which you see here. So if you've had a SCORE mentor, you've probably been exposed to it, and so it looks familiar. Today, what we're going to address is really the sales aspect. And in a little bit, we'll tell you more about that. But as you see, the bubble there over customer relationship and channels is focused on sales. So obviously that ties together. Today, I want to introduce you to my, I would say, partner in crime, but just in case law enforcement is on, he hasn't committed any crime to my knowledge. A colleague of mine, Peter Gruitz, who's got a very diversified set of backgrounds in terms of real estate, in terms of technology, and all facets of the business, and also built and led sales organizations. So I'm very glad that we're able to get Peter on here. Peter's put together some great slides, but really the knowledge will come through as he speaks. It's really not what's in the slides. Just sort of before I turn it over to Peter, a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, this is set up as a webinar, so you're automatically muted. There's a large number of people that attend webinars, and it's easier if we just keep everyone muted. At the end, once Peter is done speaking, if you have any questions, I would like to use the raise hand function, and I will go ahead and allow you to allow your computer to speak. In the meantime, as Peter is talking, I'll monitor the chat box. If you have any questions or chats, send them to me and I'll make sure that we'll address them. So let me, at this point, turn it over to Peter. Peter, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ramin. I don't see myself on the screen. Am I on?
You are on. I can see.
Okay. All right, good. Hi, everybody, and thanks for coming. You know, one of the biggest problems businesses have and face is after they've planned everything, they can't sell anything. And selling is really, nothing happens without a sale. And so it's very important that you and whoever you bring on to be a salesperson understands your values, has a process, and knows how to do things. So that's where we're going to go. So we're going to start really from a standpoint of hiring your first salesperson, your second salesperson, but most importantly, hiring yourself. For me. So before you start recruiting anybody, it's very important that you document your experience as the founder/seller. And you need to identify what works for you. For example, all of us have certain soft skills. That's our ability to communicate to others. And most of us have some sales competencies. But you need to know what's unique about your particular business and your particular style and what's required to sell your product or service. And then to document that and to do it enough times to have enough examples of what works and what doesn't work for you. Then you can create a salesperson persona. That's when you can begin to determine what is necessary for you to hire a salesperson that meets your criteria. So many times it's just, I'll go on Indeed, I'll interview 5 people, or I'll look at 5 resumes, I'll pick somebody and away I go. And I've seen that happen many, many times. The responsibility to get the most value out of your sales force is for you to understand what your expectations are for your sales force. You can't be lazy about this. You have to do the legwork yourself first and then determine how we're going to go. So you have to have confidence in your ability. You can't dial this in. You have got to do the things that is necessary for you to tell a customer, make a customer believe, and then do it as necessary to buy your product. And most importantly, you have to learn how to listen. That is probably the biggest issue that we see within any management and sales environment. It's like, here, I got this list of features that are about this. Why would you not buy this? Because I told you about it. Well, first off, if you don't listen, you don't know what your customer needs. You may be wanting to sell an icebox to an Eskimo. There is absolutely no way for you to determine how you're going to solve the problem of your customer if you don't know what their problem is. So you really have to listen to your customer in a sales, and you really have to listen to your salespeople in that, and your salespeople really have to listen to you. For me? So it's not enough just to connect the needs with your offering. You have to know how that is going to affect their circumstance. Remember, Ramin showed you the slide of the 9 steps within a business plan. And it's very important to know what your customers' needs are so that you can have a unique selling opportunity by providing a service or a product that matches those needs. You are engineering that as a business owner. You as a business owner need to anticipate what type of customers you want. So many times when we talk to a business owner and we say, well, show me your 10 best customers. Most of the time, they're going to be, half of them are going to be friends of that business owner. They may have been friends before, or they may have been as a result of the activity. In other words, they've made a connection. They know what's there. So you have to be able to craft a very compelling decision, a very compelling offering to be able to get to the next step. Right? The concept of solution selling is definitely is dead, is not true. Even if some big company has engineered an approach for lower end salespeople to just walk through the product, they have engineered that as a solution. They haven't looked at it as something that people just will pick up. It is part of an engineered solution. And that means you have to, as the owner, as the first salesman of your organization, work at engineering this compelling solution. That means you have to understand the problem. That means you have to understand what choices a customer has within a problem, and what the effective return on investment is for your solution. One of the things I like to talk about when we talk about business processes, and we'll get to that a little later. In a business process, you have to do three major things. You have to qualify your client, your prospect, your suspect, your customer. You got to qualify them for what they're interested in and what they'll buy, and are they capable of buying your solution. Next, you got to qualify yourself. You got to prove that you're capable of delivering that solution. We call that first base. That's the who question. The second thing that you move to is you have to now get down to what is the sale all about? What are the pain points that you have to solve, you have to cure to make this a viable sale? You may find that the pain points that your customer has is nothing that you can offer, and that would be a failure for both you and your customer. You have to identify those and determine whether or not your product or offering can match and help provide that pain based on what you've engineered your business to do. And then you need to communicate to your customer, here's how we do it. Now, sometimes it can be simple as saying, would you like to put that on your Visa card? Sometimes it's more complex than that. And it depends on the kind of business that you're in. If it's a landscaping business, for example, I'll send you an email with our terms and conditions. You just need to send back the answer to that, and then we'll follow from there. And I'm going to be here on certain days. I'm going to do certain things. That's what you can expect. You have to build out the expectation of what you're going to do so you don't get a negative response. It's very important that you get good reviews. Remain. So you got to connect personally with a customer. You have to really make that customer understand that you know who they are, that they are important to you and your business, and that whatever problems they have, you're going to do whatever you can do to solve that problem. You can't just pass it off. And the hardest thing for you to do in life as a business person is to keep your customers. It's very expensive to get new customers. And to have a good customer is worth all the effort you can put into it. Also, you got to provide value. And it has to be great value. And you have to make sure that you're reinforcing that positive business decision that customer made to trust you. That's what they're doing. If they give you an order, they're trusting you. That's very important. Remain. So what to look for when getting a sales rep, because that's what this discussion is all about. Early startup companies that many of you are really don't know when or where or how to get started with hiring a sales rep. Well, how do I find a sales? How do I interview the sales rep? What do I do? First thing you got to do is you got to look for certain traits within that sales rep. You got to look for a work ethic. You don't want somebody who wants to be spoon-fed everything. You have to look for people who are curious, have a curiosity about your process and your customers and what is expected of them. You also need to have people who are very positive. If they don't have a positive attitude, they can sour everything in your organization. And they have to be coachable. What do I mean by coachable? They have to be willing to accept that they're not perfect. They have to be willing to accept that good feedback from you or other people in your organization or from the customer themselves makes them better, will improve what they're doing. And they have to have basic sales competencies. You can train a kid out of school how to sell. There's no doubt about that. And you can get some real winners under that circumstances if you have a very effective sales training program. But a new business trying to get a salesperson to increase their business without going through the pain and torture of that need to look for somebody who has some sales experience. You need to measure their sales experience. You know, a salesperson knows how to sell, and they'll tell you anything they want you to hear, anything they think that you're going to roll over for them, they'll tell you. The point is, you have got to drill down and make sure that they are as competent as they say they are. For me? So a salesperson should be hired to enhance and grow your business. They should not be hired to be wallpaper. It's not just a sales role. They have to become a contributing member of your team. So questions you need to ask them, you need to drill down. Let's say that you get an interview. You've got somebody who you think looks good. They seem to be compelling. So now you got to find out subtly what it is that drives them. What is their work ethic? Many times you ask them, what did they get their first job? And they say, well, when I graduated from college, I went to work for IBM. No, you're looking for somebody who's had to work in the school of hard knocks. Did they work as a kid to make money? Did they have a paper route? Did they work at a grocery store? Did they cut grass? What did they do in their early life to determine where they're going? That's important. You want to find that out. Were they in the military? We find that an awful lot of people who were in the military understand what it means to take orders, what it means to respond to that kind of instinct. Or did you play sports? Were you a quarterback? Were you a pitcher? What role did you play in sports that helps you determine your ability to see the bigger picture? Those are things that you have to anticipate when you're looking at the work ethic. For me, another feature that you have to recruit for, that you have to look for to try to discover within a person, is their curiosity. You know, you have a lot of people who want to show up, who want to work hard, but they just don't have what it takes. You have to understand that. They have to have an ability to figure out things on their own. They have to navigate the challenges and the solutions to you that they have so that you and they can discuss how you're going to take care of them. And when they're interviewing you for a job, you have to look and see if they're prepared with a notebook and a pen. I don't know how many times I've had guys come in looking for jobs that are going to pay over $100,000 a year. And you say to them, you listen to them, and they, are you going to take notes? No, I got a good memory. Well, if you have a good memory, how am I going to know if we can go back on this? If they're not taking notes, no matter what the job is, they're not as curious as they need to be to work in your organization. And that's the goal. You're looking for people to work in your organization. They should have prepared a series of questions just based on your phone call that you had to set up the appointment for them to come see you. And then when they do ask a question, are they looking for a workable answer, or are they just looking for a, yeah, I thought that? No, they've got to be digging for it. And you have to really look for people who have that kind of curiosity. They don't ask a question unless you're ready to have a plausible answer. That is, if they ask you a question and you give them a blow-off question, then it's their responsibility to dig after you, to get you to answer the question correctly and what is plausible for you. Don't accept, they should not accept your vacant memory. You know, you're not perfect, but they should make you better than you are as they go through that. For me, another thing that's important when you're hiring somebody, no matter who they are, is a positive attitude. And why is that? Well, because particularly in a sales point of view, there's all kinds of rejection. You get rejection from customers, you get rejection from project managers, you get rejections from everybody. And then you may have a marketing campaign that everybody's invested time and energy in. You put it out there and you get no results. So you have to be positive about accepting where you are. You got to anticipate what it's going to take to do that. So, but you got to be positive. You can't be defeated every time something doesn't work. And you have to also anticipate that sometimes the product breaks. It doesn't work. You're going to get calls as the salesperson. Hey, this stuff is a piece of, why did you sell me this? And so you have to be able to accept that on a positive note. Also, service fails. Can you imagine service failing from an organization? You sold somebody a product and a service. People in your organization didn't come through. You have got to make the difference. So when you're talking to a salesperson, you've got to be looking for somebody who can overcome those objections. And a good way to do that is ask them about their challenging experiences. You want to know what really did they consider to be challenging, and what did they do to handle those challenging experiences? If they blame everyone else, watch out. My boss was dumb. Every time I had something get done, I couldn't get anything worked out. I worked with a bunch of dumb people. Well, when they do that, they're going to call you the same thing. And that kind of negative attitude will hurt your organization. Ramin? So I love this line. Great salespeople use feedback to create a better future performance. Well, that's true, because without coaching, without understanding where you're going, without seeing it from a different perspective, you won't be able to improve. I used to play chess with a few guys. We would do that on a Tuesday evening. And the third guy waiting to play the next guy could see every move on the board because he wasn't as vested in that play as the other two guys were. The same thing applies to a coach. And a coach will see things to make. I remember we used to support the Detroit Pistons years ago, and we got to go down and watch some of their practices. And Chuck Daly, who's probably one of the best basketball coaches to live, used to push around Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer, if you know anything about those two guys, and he would push them around to get them to react to a certain move. And he would physically get out there and shove them to get them to react to that coachable moment. And to their credit, they accepted that coaching move. They learned to do it better because someone was interested enough to do it. If you're interviewing somebody and they say to you, well, I do it my way, I have my own process, I really don't agree with my boss wants me to do, so I do it my way. This is what I do. If that's what you're hearing, that's somebody who is not coachable. That's somebody who doesn't understand the big game. Why would you want to hire somebody like that? You wouldn't. So you've got to really understand that you've got to have a process. It's just as important to them that you know what you're doing as it is important to you that they know what they're doing. So how do you measure performance if somebody's doing everything their own way? It's impossible. And that's one of the most important things about the sales process is you have to measure performance, not just by the sales at the end of the month, because the sales are an outcome of a business process that you've initiated, that you can measure daily, weekly, and monthly. Another thing that you want to do here to find out if they're coachable is you want to role play with your product or service in the interview. Here's a typical customer that I have. Here's what they're looking for. You be the salesman, I'll be the customer. Let's go forward and let's see if you can sell me something. For me? So sales competencies are important. What are their previous sales performance? And you're looking for someone to help you grow your business. You're not looking for somebody that's a charity case. You as a business person need to find some people who really can perform. So questions you should ask are, can they deliver results? Do they have experience with a sales funnel? Now, many of you are saying, what's a sales funnel? A sales funnel is taking leads, taking cold calls, and moving them down the path until you get to the prime suspects and prospects that you can sell something to. You need to know what their experience in selling a product or service as features or as benefits. In the chat or question and answers, raise your hand if you've ever had to sell an ashtray or a chair. There's a little button on there that you can push if you've ever had to sell an ashtray or a chair. All right, I'm going to tell you something that is a key to selling. And you need to know this, so listen to it. Back up one more with me. There you go. Had to sell a pen. Okay, that's a good one too. That's excellent. And here's what happens in an interview. I've seen this in interviews all over the place, particularly with very successful sales organizations. Here's a salesperson who thinks they know how to do everything. They've answered all the questions right. They kind of got you. And then somebody tosses them a pen or an ashtray or says, sell me that chair. And the purpose of that question is to see whether or not they're going to sell the features of that item or are they going to sell the benefits of that item. And if they begin to tell you, well, you know, this chair has expensive upholstery and it has this wood finish, premium wood finish. Well, what does that mean to me? It may be aesthetically pleasing, but more important to selling that opportunity is to open the opportunity and say, well, before I sell you any chair, we have all kinds of chairs. Tell me what you plan on doing with it other than sitting in it. Are you planning on buying a whole bunch of them for the computer, for the conference room? What has been your experience in buying chairs? Have you bought chairs that have failed before? How long do you expect a chair to last? What's your budget for a chair? Now, by my asking those questions, I've asked my customer to help me define what they're looking for. That's selling the benefits. That's asking questions to lead to the right product choice. When it comes time for me to show them product, I now know what their prejudices are, don't I? I know I have a pretty good idea as to what they're going to buy and what they're not going to buy. And I can move down that path in helping facilitate that product choice. So if somebody ever says, sell me an ashtray or sell me a chair or sell me a pen, you don't want to focus on the features because the features can be outperformed by anybody. You want to focus on what the benefits are in the relationship that you have with the customer. That you have not only that pen, you have other pens, and you have other things that you can offer to them so they can make a qualified, intelligent decision and approach to it. For me, measurable sales process. You know, sales is not just sitting around waiting for the phone ring. If anybody told you that, they were lying to you. And if you're hiring people to sit around and wait for the phone to ring, you're making a major mistake. You have to understand that there's a process. There's a way to do this. I've laid out here just a quick little targets that somebody meets. And that is, I want 5 deals a month. Well, I don't get 5 deals a month by answering the phone 5 times. I don't get 5 deals a month by just answering the phone. I have to realize that there are 20 selling days within the week, that I probably need to call 15 of those leads I've got, or 15 cold calls a day. That's not answering the phone, that's calling them. And I might be able to drive those 15 phone calls down to 75 prospects within a month. And if I got 75 prospects, my next step is to either do a demo or a proposal or take some action which gets me into a selling mode with that prospect. So that means I probably have to set up 20 appointments or demos. Will everybody who sets up an appointment for a demo or a meeting make it? No. You'll be lucky to get 80% of them. That would be a good number. So let's assume 80% of them. That means you got 20 demos, proposals, or appointments. And you have to have that many to close 5 deals a month if you are a 25% closer. That's what it takes to become a 25% closer, no matter what business you're in. You have to ask yourself, what's my measurable sales process? And what do I expect out of my salespeople? I expect them to do these kind of things and for me to be able to measure it. For me? So why do we do a sales process? Well, anything worth doing successfully is worth repeating. So you have to understand that to be a pro, you got to practice. You got to do the same thing over and over again to be good at it. So why not be a sales pro like Tom Brady as a quarterback? Now, some people like Tom Brady, some people don't. You cannot deny his success. And he knows what plays to call, just like you should know what plays to call, what process to take. He knows how many steps to take back when dropping back. For those of you not in football, it means the quarterback always backs off. If you're the salesperson, you have to know how to retreat to find a better way to find an opening in that customer's conversation. He has to know the routes the receivers are running. So he has to know what it's going to take to make it a successful sale and a successful installation or a successful service so that he knows who he's going to pass the ball to. And then he has to know when to release the ball. That is, you got to know when to ask the closing question. You have to know what it's going to take to overcome that objection, that I don't know. And then most importantly, to you have to practice what works. And you have to practice what works not just for you, but for your whole organization and for each of your salespeople. Hiring salespeople is not an easy task. It is not a retirement plan. It isn't, I'll hire this guy and he'll take over my business. I've heard that so many times it isn't even reasonable. If you're going to hire a salesperson, that means you're going to work twice as hard as you did before, because you want twice the results. And to get twice the results means that you have to make sure that you empower those salespeople to do the job. For me, salespeople figure stuff out to get stuff done. So if you're going to hire somebody who just says, I can't believe how brilliant you are. You have all the answers. I have to come to you for all the answers for everything I'm doing. Well, those are the kind of people that they just want to sit around. They don't sit around waiting to be told if they're a real sales, get things done person. They go out and achieve without being asked. You don't have to tell them what to do. They go out and do it. They'll create marketing plans when one doesn't exist. I've had salespeople come work for me who did not think our collateral stuff, our marketing material, was adequate to communicate with our customers. What did they do? They didn't tell me I had to spend $10,000 for new marketing equipment, marketing material. They worked out one sheet pieces of paper that gave them something they could use with a customer. And they came up with some brilliant ideas. And they did that on their own. So they'll create marketing items where things don't exist. They'll figure out a way to get people involved. One guy wanted to have lunches, and he planned little meetings like he was going to talk to the Rotary Club and invited people to those things. And they were very successful. They help push the bus. Now there's a book, I forget the author, but it's all about hiring people that you want to get on the bus with you to take a trip. Do you remember, Randy, do you remember who that was? No.
No, I don't remember the title. I'll look at
Well,
it.
if any of you know that, anyway, it's a very good book. If we get the title, we'll share it with you. But his point was, don't hire anybody who you don't want to be on the bus with you. It doesn't matter what their position is. Over time, they'll have to do many things to be on that bus. And if you're going to take a trip, you could get stuck in the mud, and you got to get everybody off the bus to push that bus and to get it out of the mud. Well, you don't want to hire anybody who isn't going to help you do that. And that, I think, is very important in trying to get things done with people that want to get things done. They also need a flair for creativity. They have to be able to think out of the box. And that's what you have to look for. Time is not adequate for us to be able to discuss what all the little steps are. But you can work with your mentor. SCORE has mentors that know all this stuff. And you can get somebody to help you as you begin to describe this and work on it before you start spending money. That's the big problem. How do you engineer all of this and have somebody help you without spending a fortune? You don't want to spend a fortune. That's why you need to call SCORE, and we'll work on that. So if it needs to be done, the people you need to hire will do it. And if you want to have this kind of plan put together and these kind of questions and this kind of role-playing experience, you need to get yourself a SCORE mentor. They're confidential, they don't cost anything, and they're really experienced people. For me. So what in the hiring practice, you have to read the resume carefully. You need to find 2 or 3 things in the resume that you can drill down on. You have to look for candidates who strive to be better. The resume is going to tell you that. You also want somebody who's really got a lot of confidence, because that confidence is going to get worn down over a period of time with a small business salesperson. You want a competitive spirit. My grandsons have got competitive spirits. They're just unbelievable. They're more than I ever had. And you need to conduct several interviews and pull in others to interview the candidate. What do I mean by that? You've interviewed somebody, you're ready to make a decision, but they haven't talked to anybody else in your organization. And you have 2 or 3 people within your organization, maybe you have 20 people in your organization, but you need to find 2 or 3 people who can add value to that decision. You want the opinion of others they're going to have to work with. So you have to have several interviews and have them have interviews with other people. You have to assess their ability for natural interaction. Can they stand up and talk to somebody? Are they quick on their feet? Do they have the kind of capability where you would be comfortable talking to them and not feel like they're reading something out of an iPhone to be able to talk to you? Are they creative problem solvers? You need to ask them what problems they've solved and how they solved them. You also don't be afraid to reject candidates. You're going to see a lot of candidates if you do this right, and you have to be willing to reject some. You can't have everybody and want everybody to work for you. And when you find the right one, or in the process of this, you got to run some background checks. You would be surprised what the background of some of these people are. And you have to have a good idea that they fit you in a way that's meets your values and meets your values. For me, so there's a lot of detail there. I hope it awakens you to realize you have to be empowered. You have to be empowered to get the right people for the right job to help you grow your business. And to do that means you have to be aware of what your process is. You have to be aware of where you're going and where you want to be there. And you have to have some money budgeted to be able to do it. So those are all important factors in what you're looking for. I'm going to leave you with this because you're going to need to overcome objections, particularly objections, even in this job interview process. And that is what I call feel, felt, found. A lot of you have probably had experience with this, but let's give you a try. I know what you're thinking or how you feel. Hey, I know how you feel. I felt that way many times myself. So I got feel and felt in there. And just like you, I found that this was a good solution after I checked it all out. That's feel, felt, found. You can use it so nobody even knows you're going through it. And it empowers you to be sympathetic at the same time overcoming the objection. So all of you say feel, felt, found. Let me hear it. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. Feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. I felt the same way. But what I found is that this is a good decision. That's the way you overcome feel, felt, found. So on that basis, how many of you have heard that before? They're very good. Thank you, Miranda. And very good. Many of you have heard this feel, felt, found, but didn't know what you were listening to. Who do you think uses this on national television? I'm coming up blank. Ramin, let's show them who it is. Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck says, well, I know what you're thinking and how you feel. I felt that way too. And what is he talking about? He's talking about reverse mortgages. People have objections to reverse mortgages. Tom Selleck's television ad says, I know how you feel. I felt the same way. And it's kind of thought it was a catch. But what I found is not any of that. It's not another way for them to get you. By the way, they've been very, very successful to a point where other actors have tried to emulate that on different ads as they go through it. So in summary, in summary, you have to have, you're looking for somebody who has a capability. And you have to know that they're there to solve problems. And someone say to us, do you think an engineer would make a good salesperson? Absolutely. Engineers make the best salespeople. They don't have to be outgoing, overwhelming, pushy people. They have to be problem solvers. They have to be interested in a problem that people have that they want to solve. That's the first and foremost. They also have to have integrity. They have to do the right thing, even when it's under pressure. And you have to have the customer's back. You genuinely want to help the customer, or you're not going to be a good salesman. You're just going to be an empty suit. And you have to really look long-term to build that trust with your customer. And those are the things that you have got to embolden within the people you hire and that you work on. You can't hire somebody and turn them loose and not follow what they're doing. You have got to have a sales process where you're involved, where you're coaching, where you're defining and refining your business process. And it has to match what you can deliver. Thanks a lot, folks. Appreciate you being with us today.
Okay, thank you, Peter. This is excellent, all the points you mentioned. I jotted down a few things. First of all, my personal experience, it's difficult to hire good people, but to me, it's even more difficult to hire great salespeople. It just takes a special kind of person, whether you're in a relationship selling organization where you have to get to know a customer for 6 months before you get an order, or you're picking up the phone and they're going to order something. There's a way to develop that relationship and that trust. And I've always felt that there's a special kind of person that can do that. Some of it can be taught, but some of it they bring to the table, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's one
I'll
thing.
give you an example of that. My veterinarian, I have 2 dogs.
Mhm.
My veterinarian, there's a girl that answers the phone who her name is Vanessa, and she sells everything every minute. She is aware of the dogs. She's looking at a computer just like you and I would,
Yeah.
but she makes a connection, and she's an unusual person. And that's to your point. It happens in every aspect.
Yep, it does. The other thing I jotted down is, hiring great people is important. Hiring great salespeople is important. But if you end up with the wrong person, it will take you 10 times as long to correct that situation. You get penalized heavily. So whether that person changes the culture of your enterprise, whether that person takes, 6 months to get fired or causes, it is really important to your point, Peter, to spend that time up front and be very diligent before you hire someone.
Absolutely. And it doesn't cost you any money to do it.
Doesn't cost you any money. So those are a couple of things. I see Anthony has his hand up. Anthony, if you'd like to unmute and speak. Go ahead, Anthony. We can't hear you. Anthony, are you able to speak? We can't hear you.
Maybe he has to unmute himself.
Yeah, it shows that he's unmuted. We can't hear him for some reason, maybe a mic problem. Is it Al? Okay, I'll go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. This is one of the best webinars that I've been to because I know so little about sales. But if I'm just starting out, very, very small, one person, I don't have enough resources to hire somebody full time. What's the best strategy to kind of initiate some sort of sales process in my organization?
Well, that's you have to become as a founder, you have to become the star salesperson first. And to do that, I would really suggest, Al, that you get a mentor that you can spend an hour with once every other week or something to kind of get you through that process, to design your process. The process that I would suggest you think of, a very basic one, is that I need to qualify who I am, and I need to qualify my prospect before I can move any further. I need to, in other words, identify who I am and why I'm qualified to do this, and identify the prospect is qualified to buy from me. Once I've got that in place, and that's not a long process, but it is something that you have to do, then you can define what their needs are. Don't go to the product first. Go to their needs and see if there's a match between their needs and the product or service that you've engineered to match those needs. And if there isn't any, then you need to quiz it further or move on to somebody else. Don't get so married to that particular prospect that you can't go anywhere. You have your time is very valuable. The other thing I would say is before you hire anybody, you need to personally work with at least 10 customers. You need to take those 10 customers from beginning to end of both the recruiting and sales process so that you can get an order from them. You got to convince those 10 customers that you know how to solve their problems and that they like what you did and they're willing to work along with you and you've learned what's going on. So my suggestion to you is that first learn something about, engineer your business to a solution that you can work on as a way of helping a customer solve a problem. Your job is to solve a problem and to figure out a way to do it in such a way that you can make money at it. And that would be my suggestion. After you've done 10 of those customers, you'll know what you want in a sales process. And then you need to really look at what you did and what was a failure and what was positive, and make sure that you don't recreate those problems in your hires. Hope that helped.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Al. That's a great question. While we wait for other questions, I know Nabil, our leader in SCORE Minnesota, is with us, and Nabil has some experience in hiring salespeople, hopefully good, but maybe some not so good. And Nabil, what are your thoughts that you can share with us?
Thanks, Ramin. Thanks, Peter. Al, very good question, by the way. When I started my company 25 years ago, I had an engineering background, I had an MBA, but I had zero sales experience. And I had a big contract from my previous employer when I started, and I thought all I have to do was start and people will pave a path all the way to my door. And quickly realized that that was not going to happen anytime soon. And I wish I knew half of what Peter just talked about today, because it would have been very helpful. It took me a little while of trying to sell to figure out that I wasn't going to be very successful at selling without having some marketing. So I just want to make sure that all entrepreneurs think about that. It's much easier to sell when you have a marketing strategy that generates leads, that brings people to your store or brings people to your website or makes people aware of what you offer. So you need to have some kind of a lead generation process in place. And then once I had that, I had to figure out how to sell and streamline my selling process. And that took a little while also to establish. And then hiring salespeople initially was hit or miss. A lot of people worked for me and then quit because we weren't giving them enough leads, or we weren't training them enough, or they weren't following the process correctly. So what I had to do is document the sales process from A to Z, make sure that every salesperson is fully trained, they have all the tools that are needed, they have the workspace, computer, phones, whatever it is that's necessary for them to be able to complete that entire process. And then I learned the hard way who to hire. There are some salespeople that are natural, they come in and they hit the road running and they do an excellent work and they fit that description that Peter talked about. But also there's a lot of other people that don't have that natural talent, and you have to train them. Unless you have that process in place that makes it very easy for them to follow in order to bring in that sale, they won't be very successful. So think about all this when you hire salespeople. Think about putting in a process in place. Think about making sure that you have the proper marketing processes in place as well. I usually hired salespeople when I had enough leads to justify all the other salespeople's time and more. And that's typically when I hired additional salespeople. So the salesperson's job was not necessarily to go out and generate leads, although I did encourage that they make some cold calls when needed and look through the database for low priority leads and follow up with them. But typically I didn't hire salespeople until I had enough leads to keep them busy. And the one additional note that I want to make here is, again, be careful with whom you hire. One person came to me when I first interviewed them and he's like, I got a database from my previous employer I could bring in, you could use it, we could call some of these customers. And I was like dead set against it. I'm like, no, you're not bringing in anything. And for many reasons. One, it's unethical, it may be illegal. But also that same person, once they leave your company, they'll probably walk away with your database and try to take it to your competition. So just
Absolutely.
go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If they'll do it for somebody, they'll do it to you.
That's right. Just be careful with whom you hire and make sure you do your full diligence on them before you hire them. And like Raman said, you make a mistake in hiring the wrong person, that's going to be a very costly mistake.
Real good input. Thank you, Nabil. That's extremely valuable and complementary to what Peter shared. Anyone have any questions? Please use the raise hand function in Zoom.
Karen has a question, Ramin, and that is, since a lot of companies are still offering employees to work off-site, what tech-savvy skills would you recommend to look for in a salesperson? That's a very good question, Karen. And the problem with sales and working home by yourself is you don't pick up the creative solutions that you need to be an effective salesperson, in my opinion, unless you have been selling for many years and you have a set way of doing it and you can handle it on the phone. Most people need that cohesive relationship to be able to do that. And when they're tech savvy, well, if they're not tech savvy today, when are they going to become tech savvy? What is going to make them all of a sudden become tech savvy? You're going to have to waste your time teaching somebody who doesn't know how to do anything. And is that a fair use of your time? You have to be a little jealous of your time. You have to pick people who aren't going to waste your time, who are going to enhance your time. That would be my suggestion.
I love that response. I mean, it kind of where we are after the last year is that, people knew a certain level of technology, and now people have been home. A year and a half ago, hardly anybody knew what Zoom was, but now you can get your grandma on a Zoom with no problem. So, I think the standards have raised now, then you can have expectations that someone is comfortable working from home and working remotely when needed. The other thing I would say is, how about turning that into an advantage? Hey, instead of coming to see you, I can get on a video with you, Mr. Customer, Ms. Customer, anytime. Call me, even if I'm on the soccer field, my kid has a game, I'll get you on the phone and we'll talk about it. So think about, first of all, expect a lot. People should know technology now coming in, and as Peter said, and two, think about how do you turn that into an advantage going forward. There's a question from Janine regarding background checks. I've been involved in quite a bit of that, and there are companies out on the web that do a good job with background checks. From a cost perspective, it depends what level you want. You actually pick what kind of background check you want to do. For example, if you're going to trust this person with money, there are certain background checks you can do, or you could just do a simple criminal background check that's based on public domain data. It doesn't cost very much. I would say it's in low hundreds, depending on what you pick. And there's some great companies that do that. Okay. What other questions? Do you have a recommendation? I don't have the names in my head right now, but if you do a search, there's some reputable companies out there on the web. I don't know if Nabil or Peter remember any of the background check companies, but I don't remember any of them.
Well, we typically used a service for that.
Yeah.
And then they would get us a report. It was an extension of Dow Jones, I think, is what we used.
Yeah, it's very, very easy now. It's as easy as ordering something off Amazon, to be honest with you. And it's easy to find those reputable companies. And a lot of them are using, as I said, public domain data, so you get the same results.
I would encourage you, if any questions came up where you think you need more detail, I would strongly encourage you to send an email to SCORE and say, okay, I need some help. Assign me a mentor. It won't cost you anything. It's confidential, and you're going to find some great people. We have a big chapter. As a matter of fact, we've been a diamond chapter for years. And there's a great group of people at SCORE who are looking to help you. And I would strongly suggest that. It's minnesotascore.org.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I don't see any other questions. Actually, there is one. Anthony has, I'm curious to hear more about pay plans. I talk to owners in my industry who pay on strict commission, and then others who pay on salary plus. I'm considering a draw versus commission, a happy medium. So Peter, I never led employees that were quota bearing. So what are your thoughts regarding comp plans?
Well, in our particular approach, we would figure out really what is the expectation for them to make money for us. Well, how many sales are we looking to get? We'd lay that out and we'd figure here's what the par is for that. And here's what it is for the next 90 days. And I'm willing to invest 50% of that if you are. So I'll do a 50% draw or salary, depending on the circumstances. Depends on the person too. And the other half you're going to have to make up. And at the end of 90 days, if you've hit the number, we'll put a whole new compensation program together. But I got to see where you're going in 90 days. And I'm not willing to throw money at you. And that's worked for me because most people fall in that category where they understand, I'm not going to get a free ride out of this.
Yeah, and I like that approach of and even doing a 30, 60, 90-day sort of plan for a new employee so you can coach them through it. And I know the job market, finding great employees is difficult. Finding any employee right now is difficult, let alone a great employee. They got to believe that you want them to succeed. You're coaching them, you're working through it with them, rather than looking at it as a probationary period. You know what I mean? It's a little different. But I love the 90-day plan. And you know what? Just like you might think that's not the right person for your organization, they might think you're not right for them. So it goes both ways.
It is as charming as we all think we are.
Yeah, it may not work. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ramin, for inviting me to participate today. I hope it was helpful.
This has been great. And let me wrap up now. I think we've had great engagement. Peter has said many times, if you need a mentor, go ahead and get on minnesotascore.org and request one. It's free. And you know what? Even if you feel that, Al asked a great question earlier, if you feel like it helps to talk to someone for an hour or two, or once a month or once every other, hey, do it. It doesn't cost anything, and you'll get access to great mentors. Really think about what you learned today. And, we're all about making you successful. And so the best reward we get is to have you pick up some of the nuggets from today's talk that Peter gave and build a great organization. You will get a copy of the presentation and a survey. So please do a survey. We want to improve how we deliver content to you. So please complete the survey and stay in touch with us. We really appreciate you giving us your attention today and hope that you have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.